Our guest today is Takahiro Yagi. He's a master craftsman and sixth generation head of Kaikado. Kaikado started making tea caddies, chazutsu, in Kyoto in 1875, soon after Japan reopened to the world after almost 300 years of closing its borders. Now, Kaikado has been making these tea caddies for more than 130 years. And one of the interesting things is that not only they're made to last, but they become more beautiful with time. I have some of mine here with me, and Taka, which is how Takahiro Yagi usually gets called, will be showing some of his. Now, it's interesting because you'll find these tea caddies in a lot of special places. You can find them, of course, at my place, but also as part of the collection of the V&A in London. And allegedly, how the tea caddy closes inspired Steve Jobs to design the box for the iPhone. If you look at the tea caddies, they have this wonderful way of closing by displacing the air slowly. Now, Taka is a Shokunin, a master craftsman, and he has collaborated with international designers, other craftspeople, and technologists all over the world. He's also going to share one of his recent collaborations with technology company Panasonic. And we're going to talk a bit about, yes, what Kaikado does, but also how can a company stay relevant for more than 100 years? And what's the role of the Shokunin, of the master craftsman in today's world? So let's please welcome Takahiro Yagi from Kaikado.
Hello, everyone. This is Taka talking from Japan, Kyoto, and I just connected from my workshop. So sorry, it is a little bit messy, but maybe you can feel Kaikado's the workshop through the online. Hello, Gianfranco.
Hey, Taka.
How are you?
Very good on London, rainy and grey morning, but my heart is warm seeing all the people that have connected. I wanted first to ask you to share a bit with the attendees from all over the world. What is Kaikado and what you do and how you do it?
Yes, the Kaikado, it's kind of my family work, and we started from 1875. It is about 145 years ago. And at the time, Japan just opened our country to the rest of the world. And at the time, Japan imported tin seats from UK. And then at the time, the tin seat is a very fashionable foreign-made material. So our first generation decided to make the tin, tea tin, like a tea container like this one, about 145 years ago. And until now, we continue making exactly the same tea container. People to use the tea fresh and keep it longer.
So, I use mine for coffee too. I have tea ones, but also have a coffee one here. So it's not just for tea people. Let's clarify, otherwise we're going to lose some participants.
Yes, and this is the one for the coffee with the yes. Yeah, so and also this is a tea container we make it about more than 100 years ago.
Wow.
And people still bring back this caddy to fix to adjust again, to use again. So that means people buy right now, people bring back 100 years later. So all we have to do is to do exactly the same work for next 100 years. So right now, no, diameter is the same, size is the same. Also, inner lid is the same from 145 years ago. So if something happened with each parts, we can exchange.
Right. And just to clarify, those two caddies that you have in right now are made from the same material, right? And they used to look the same when they were both new.
Yes. And if you touch and use it every day, the color will grow from here to here, about in 40 years.
Yeah, there's a few people I see connected today that they desperately wanted aged tea caddies. And of course, there's always a paradox here, right? Because, well, not a paradox, but the tension between having a new object made today and having that could age with you. So you could have it for 40 years and would become, with that matte black, or buying it directly aged, without waiting. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but almost we want to speed up time, right? To get the best, the product at its best, which actually will take 40 years in this case.
And also something like, especially for the brass one, the color sometimes goes to the yellowish color or pinkish color. So it depends on the person. And also it depends on the food you eat. So if you eat vegetable more, or if you eat meat more, it makes a different color. So it is very customized, yes. And also the copper ones, we make the copper one too. And the copper one also these kind of color. This is, yes.
Yeah, this one is too new. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 80 years old. So still, if you adjust the joint, the lead gradually goes down by itself. Yep. So you can use it for a long time, and you can pass to the next generation. So, and also in my grandfather's ages, people use this caddy, bring this caddy to the tea shop to refill and bring it back. So it is very sustainable things you can use for a long time.
So it acts also as packaging, right? So you can, you don't need bags or nothing. You just go to maybe Ipodo, and they'll put the tea directly into the tea caddy.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about the process, but also how you started in this, because you're the sixth generation, and you're quite young, so you're carrying on with this, legacy of 145 years. But you're both a master craftsman, a shokunin, and also the main promoter of the company, or the main person running the collaborations. So I'm curious to hear about how you got into this.
So when I was at university ages, my father told me, please go away from this business, because he thinks traditional handicraft will be extinct soon. So for him, this is not worth to continue, because I worry about my career and my life. So that's why I work for another company for 3 years. It is for the souvenir company for foreign people in Kyoto. And then at the company, we also sell the tea caddy too. And about 3 years later, the lady coming from US, she just bought the tea container from the souvenir shop. And I feel a little strange. So I asked her, what are you going to use it for? And she said, I'm going to use it in a kitchen. So if she bought as a souvenir for someone, I feel nothing. But he told me she wants to use it in the kitchen. That means we can go into the culture in other country. So, and then I realized this is what I want to do in my career and in my life. And I tell my father, I want to come back and I want to sell the caddies in the whole world. But my father told me, I'm crazy. This is a Japanese tea caddy, so no one in the world can understand this. But, for myself, I believe, we can say in the future. So I coming back and I start working. But my father never teach me how to make the caddy. So he just tell me, just watch and learn how to make the caddy. So I just learn, I just watch what he's doing, and I try to do the same. And if it's not correct, he said, this is not good. But if it's correct, he said nothing and walk away.
Wow.
So all I have to do is just, I have to feel what he does. And but he always, teach to the another younger craftspeople. So I always wonder why. But in the later, I can understand why. But we will talk about this kind of things later. But and then 5 years later, I got the email from London, which is from from here, like a postcard tea.
teas, yes.
Yes. And they want to sell the caddy in London, and I'm very happy to have the email, and we have the conversation in Kyoto what we should do, and then I ask him, can I do some demonstration in your place, and then I bring all the tools, but at the time our company is very small, only about 5 people working together, like my grandmother, my mother, me, and one craftsperson, and the one the person for the part-time job, and so only I can get it's a the most less expensive ticket to the London, and I have no booking for the reservation for the hotels. So I asked the team, the owner, can I stay in your place? And he kindly allowed me to stay in their place, and then I show my work, and it was a really great time, and the people started understanding, and yes, it was really great. I still remember, the first 10 days in London, and then about 10 years later, it was about 2014, Victoria and the Albert Museum just contact them to correct our caddy to the permanent collection. And it was my dream, like my favorite place, my favorite museum. So I'm happy, and I tell my father, Victoria and Albert wants to correct our caddy, but he doesn't understand anything. So he just told me, oh, okay, who is the 2 guys? And he doesn't know it is a museum. But actually, 2015, he was in London and happy to see the caddy was decorated. And
an amazing trip from actually importing originally the tin sheets from the UK in 1875 to kind of the caddies going back and now being shown in the UK. And actually, let's give a shout out to Timothy Duffay, the owner of Postcard Teas, because it's one of my favorite places to buy tea. That's where I bought one of my Kaikado caddies. But the first time I met you and I saw you at work was in Milan during the Salone, I think 7 or 8 years ago. And actually, yes, you were making a demonstration, right? Mm-hmm. You gave me a scoop with my name, and I thought that was quite powerful, because on one side you were dressed as a modern person, you had very fancy jacket and tie, you were making these objects that actually were getting more beautiful with time, which is almost the opposite of today's technology. Your phone, after 1 year, you feel miserable because you have the old one, right? But then you were demonstrating, so you were making it close to us, as a viewer, as an audience. It was not mystical or hidden. You were showing actually how to do these things. And I think you had a very similar seat and like the one you have there, right? With your hammer and the anvil, and yeah.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning your learning process, how you had to imitate and follow and stuff, but without many instructions, which is fascinating, right? Because each caddy takes, I think there's something like 140 steps to make them. So it's not just hammering a bit and everything works, right? One step takes you to the next, and they have to all be properly done. Otherwise, the product won't be useful, won't work at the end.
So now I understand, but at the first time, I always wondered why my father never teach me. But every day, all I have to do is, I have to feel my father's feeling. So sometimes, I make some of these, this is the lid of the caddy and an inner parts of the caddy, and he always check by, rolling like this. And so I always pass I make about a couple of these and pass to my father, and my father check the feeling. And he told me, this is too tight, or this is too loose. And I always listen carefully about this is too tight or this is too tight. And then I try to feel it, and then I start understanding that if he teach me, I think I can only learn the surface of the tea caddy, only I can learn how to make the tea caddy. But in this part, there is the secrets of the Kaikado itself.
Mm.
So to learn the secrets of the Kaikado, I think I have to learn from my side, not from my father to me.
Right.
So if I try to learn it, then I can start feeling it. Now I understand it, but if if I can be only the craft person to make the caddy, maybe he can teach me. But also same time I have to run the Kaikado too. So that's why he never teach me. So, and also the one thing when I coming back to Kaikado, he told me is this job is a shoku-shōbai, which means like a shoku means a shokunin, which is the crafts person, and the shōbai means which is a business. So we have to do both with a balanced. So all the first thing he teach me is this word. And always, after that, I always start thinking about the balance.
There's something interesting. Let's touch on this word, shokunin. So there's two things I find interesting from a Western point of view. The first one is one of the ideograms that makes shokunin is the ideogram to listen, to the ear, right? And speaking with a lot of craftsmen in Japan, craftspeople in Japan, but also abroad, they mentioned that hearing is very important in what they do. It's not so much looking at things, the sense of seeing. While in today's society, most of what we do is first seeing, through screens, through a visual stimulation. Sound usually accompanies it, but in the work you do, when you were mentioning even twisting around and you're listening for things, right? How it feels has also got to do with the senses beyond just seeing if it's right or not, which is an interesting thing. But another one, yes, in English, we usually translate shokunin as craftsperson. But in Japanese, it has, I feel, a deeper meaning, right? There's also a social meaning. And also shokunin is not limited just to people that work with what we call crafts, because you could be a sushi shokunin, or, you can have them in so many different aspects.
Yes. And because the shokunin, sometimes we use the word to make the engine, to build the engine person for. So it's not only in the craft world, also in the engineer world, and also sometimes in maybe like a taxi driver, and also he knows everything and he can feel everything. That is kind of the shokunin.
So it has that spirit of mastery in a way in your field, in your domain. And you mentioned another thing which I find very interesting. In the West, we tend to use the word crafts or craftsmanship, usually related to either old activities or art. While what I found in Japan is that the craftsmanship, the value of craftsmanship translates into technology. You could be, working in super high tech, not doing much with your hands, but you're still working with craftsmanship with similar, processes. It's in manufacturing. The whole Kaizen approach, right, of continuous improvement comes from what was a mechanical or, a craft, small kind of production, which there's no discontinuity. While in other places, we see crafts on one side and technology or modern technology in a separate one. Japan has kept a sort of continuity in across industries.
I think there is a one in a cross point, which is something like not I make, it's something like we make, and we always make the things for the person who use. And also we always feel, our ancestors in behind, but so always the tea caddy, it's not my work, this is a work for the person who use. So we always think about, the other person, and also that we will always share the same kind of the atmosphere or the feeling together in between. So that the kind of the in between things is very important for the shokunin world. So if it's like I make, I think it's kind of the artist work.
Hmm.
We show my work and my feeling and my emotion or something, but the crafts people just show the shokunin feeling, which is like always connect to the person outside from the workshop. I think that kind of feeling is very important for the shokunin. And also engineer world, sometimes like a Panasonic or something like that kind of the company is the same feeling. They are just making the people make it happy with kind of the mass produced things. So that kind of place we can have the overlapped part with those kind of you know company, I think.
And one of the things you did, so in a previous conversation we had a couple of years ago, you were mentioning that each new generation at Kaikado, on one side, they work on the tradition so that it can protecting something, but also helping it to evolve so that it can live, 100 more years each time, but also that each generation brings something new. Part of it was making new designs, but you mentioned that your contribution was um, starting collaborations with different industries and different kind of talents and going abroad. Can you share a bit of that? Because, 1875 or 1868, 69, with the Meiji Restoration, Japan was still very closed. Then for 50, 60 years, there was a Japonism, right? People were abroad were falling in love with the idea of Japan more than the reality, the arts, the crafts. It was a very romantic feeling. But what you started to do is very different, right? It's opening to the rest of the world, not staying within the Japan bubble. So tell us a bit about that.
So at the time, in Japan, we always accept a lot of new things comes from foreign country, and also especially in Kyoto, our emperor moves to the Tokyo, and also our Kyoto economy was kind of the crash down, and so we wanted something new, and we just struggling for the future, and it was like 1870s, and but then and also still right now the Kyoto people really likes to having something new. I think it's started from that point, and but so at that time we welcome a lot of new thing into Kyoto world. So before that, we only wear the kimono, but we start wearing the leather shoes with the kimono, and we try to take off the chonmage and start it with the normal hair or something like new right now. And at that time, and we try to combine together and make it new the value for the people, and that kind of things still continue until now. But in Kyoto, but in this 140 years, we have struggle a lot to sing, but still, we never forget that point.
So how was it to start to work with people from very different fields, right? Because you all have your master in your own domain, but sometimes these collaborations are not obvious. So tell us a bit about the collaborations you started doing. What were you seeing or learning by making them?
Actually, we maybe it's better to show this one first. And this looks like a tea caddy, but actually there's a small light here. So this is not a tea caddy. This is the wireless speaker. So if you open it, the sound is on, and then the sound is off. So to make this one, and we start talking with the Panasonic about only one point, and they ask me, they want to make something on the good quality of life in 100 years later. So if right now something that kind of home electronics, people always buy and always throw away, and if we can the home electronics, we can pass to the next generation. I think that is very good for the 100 years later good quality of the life. That's why I want to make something like that. So that's why we make this one. So you can touch and use it every day, the color will change and it becomes a very good color, and then you can pass to the next generation. And even if inner parts you cannot replace it, we can make this back to the tea caddy.
Yeah.
So you can use it for a long time. So to make the things together, if we circle like this is the industrial, this is a craft, we never match together. But if we can find out at the point we can feel same together, maybe we can make something new to the world. That point, if we can forget, if we do not forget the point and thinking about the future, we can have lots of solution to do something together.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting things to me as someone who lives in the 21st century is that um, it's not about going to the past. There's a lot of things we did in the past because that's what we had, that's the technology we had. This has been some evolution, but it feels that a few decades ago, we came up with the idea of new, and we only want the newest thing, right? And everything has to be throwaway. So we've been throwing away a lot of knowledge of things well built, things that can last forever, things that can be repaired. And I believe that embracing both worlds is what's gonna send us towards the future. It's not just a matter of sustainability, but it's also understanding all the values and everything, all the creativity that humanity has brought into existence, that shouldn't be wasted just because it's not new anymore.
Sure.
And bridging both worlds is very important.
So always if I make something, I always feel my ancestor in behind, and always I think about my next generation or next generation. So I'm living something like a diversity of the timeline. And so also this kind of things, when you open it, the sound is on and you can feel the vibration from the caddy. So when we make this caddy, we never think about will go down. This is not our main goal. What we want to make is good feeling when you open it.
Yeah.
And also air tightness. And as a result, the lid goes down by itself.
Well, that's something worth saying, right? So this was a function. You wanted to keep the tea leaves fresh, so you needed to get rid of all the air and stuff. That's why this surface is so long. But then there's the beauty. Not only there's the beauty of the surface that ages, but also the whole thing feels right. The size, the sound it makes, how it moves, and I believe that one of the keys to a better life is starting to live also from our neck down, right? Because we tend to associate mostly with our brain. We are mostly getting things through our eyes, but we are the whole body, right? Body and mind cannot operate separately. And I find that in a lot of the work you do, a lot of the work that I've been finding in Japan, it embraces all sides of it. One is not secondary to the other one.
So the always we cannot find out the points only from the how can I say in a 設計図, which is like from drawing.
Yes.
Yeah. We all when we make the caddy, we in this stage we cannot figure out this is a good caddy or not. When we can after we can make this kind of shape, we can tell, this one has a good atmosphere or not. So that is from my feeling, which is my father teach me, and also my father was taught by my grandfather. It was coming from our ancestors. So we all that kind of feeling, when we make the caddy has not good feeling, we cannot sell well. So I think there is some secrets for the future, not only from the function, always a function coming to the next function, it's get better. So, but feeling, sometimes it's not never change several generations. That's why people bring back 100 years old tea container to adjust again, to use again.
Mm.
So what we always take care in Kaikado is the feeling when you open it. There is some secret, even if we mix this kind of things. This is the water pitcher. When we make this one, we try to think about the feeling match to the feeling when I open it. So I think that it's very important from now on to the people for the
Yeah.
future. So, but that kind of thing is very difficult to turn into the words.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the frustrations of this year is I was supposed to go back to Japan to spend time with different shokunin, because there's a lot of things we can discuss, and of course there's the blessing of being able to do this, remote conversations, but other things have to be felt and done and touched. That's why for me it was so powerful the first time I saw you working and you made that tea scoop and stuff. You could have told me this is going to be beautiful and it's great and stuff, but actually you made it, I touched it, I had it, and if there's one thing that hasn't changed in thousands of years is the human interface, right? We have changed how we dress, we have changed the technology we use, but how we perceive things, our feelings, our human nature hasn't changed. And it sometimes feels that we're trying to put that down. If we were machines, we can upgrade instead of bringing out all that beauty, all that feeling, all that emotion that our built environment also has with it. We see it a lot in housing, right? There was a time where we were making houses just for protection, or building cities just for a convenience. And now we realize, especially this year, where many of us have spent a lot of time inside our houses in lockdown, without leaving our cities, that now having trees outside or having a comfortable space, not an expensive space, a comfortable space, one that adapts to our needs, and to the needs of the people around us, is very important.
So, but right now, but on the other hand, people start forgetting about the good point of the craft and also the feeling too. So, I think people start when to people start look back to the real value of the craft. I think maybe we need some words to the people who can catch it. And so thinking about the tea ceremony things, wabi-sabi, which is a very strange words, but with this words, people start try to look at the tea ceremony things. I think without this wabi-sabi words, I think tea ceremony things never be a worldwide thing. So I think for the class, we need some words to tell the core value of the craft. So that's why I try to go all over Japan to find out the core value of the craft.
So that's very interesting, because also part of my work, I'm not trying to become. I wish I could, but probably it's too late for that. I'm not trying to become a craftsman of traditional crafts, but I'm very interested in the essence and the spirit and taking it to the rest of our lives, because I think it could be very useful even if you work as a designer or in software or in marketing or business. So that's why I'm interested in the word shokunin, which of course is, has to do with craft, but also with social responsibility, with working with others, with, challenging and aiming for that spirit of, if you wish, kodawari, right? Of continuous improvement and perfection for your own sake, not for the market, but for you. But I recently was having a conversation where there was an exhibition in Tokyo about Kōgei, right? So Kōgei often gets translated as craft, but they decided not to translate it that way because, they had many national living treasures, 82, I think, doing objects specifically for this exhibition. It was supposed to be together with the Olympics, but that didn't happen. But they decided to keep the word Kōgei because the argument was this has to do a bit with art, a bit with craft. It's not one or the other. And they're trying to promote this word as an international word, the same way as, for example, sushi. Before the word sushi became well known abroad, we would have called it rice with fish on top or something like that. But that's not sushi. Yes, some sushi is rice with fish on top, but it's something more. And sometimes we need to find either the right word or a new word to express things that carry a new sense of meaning.
So what do you think, right now I'm still wonder, we should use from the Japan side, we should use the crafts for the Kōgei, or we should use the Kōgei to the world?
It's challenging because I saw some of the pieces. I was talking with the curator of that exhibition, and some of them were like very high art, one-offs, very, and are just for display. You cannot use them, they're not practical. While others were very functional, still beautiful, but very functional, and they can be manufactured in more than one item. So it was tricky because I would have called some of them craft, some of other of them art, but they were mentioning that some were more towards the art because they were showing the techniques that they also use in the functional one. But making something more art-like was a great way to show the value of the technique. So I think it's challenging when you say craft. A lot of people think of either traditional stuff, and I know traditional sometimes has a negative feeling to it. Tradition is one thing, traditional is another one. So I don't know. I think there is a point for Kōgei. The question is Kōgei only about Japan, or could, the same way that now you have California rolls, right? I'm not saying which ones you just prefer, but it has become sushi has become a word for the world, and more people can do sushi, not just Japanese. So I think there is that tension. When the Mingei movement started 100 and so years ago, it was about crafts for the people. So Mingei. So it was one specific kind of craft, and now you could argue that there is Mingei in many countries, the same as Wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is a feeling and an interpretation of a physical aspect, but it's not just Japanese, right? You could find a lot of things which are Wabi-sabi around the world. So I think there's a learning curve. If you said Kōgei today, most people wouldn't understand, so you would be losing them. But I think there is some value in having a word that bridges the gap between craft and art and functional and aesthetics. Because what you do, you were showing before the Panasonic speaker, there's a lot of knowledge that you can carry from your field, even though your main business is doing tea caddies. You can carry a lot of that knowledge into other fields and back. So yes, you work with something that has a long history, but your knowledge is not just limited to that, because it's about understanding volume and shape and air displacement and how this makes people feel. So I think there's a lot of value there. By the way, I see some people asking questions. There's a Q&A function, and I'm going to be picking some of those questions in a second. But before we jump to that, I wanted to ask you about another thing, which I think connects with what you're sharing right now, which had to do with collaborations, but now you're working with a group of other craftsmen, other shokunin, craftspeople from other fields, and you've been going abroad as a group. The go-on or goon, you call them goon, which has an interesting meaning in like the Goonies in English. But you brought together people from very different fields, and probably 100 or 200 or 300 years ago, you wouldn't have talked together much because you were all in a silo, right? There was a textile, the woodworker, the high artist that makes ceramics. But tell us a bit about this collective and what you're trying to do and working as a collective towards the world.
It was, we started the Go On project from the 8 years ago. And at the time, my father was like it was like 65. And I feel this might be the last moment to tell about the craft to the world. Otherwise, people forget about the crafts. Then maybe my father's ages give up to pass to the next generation. The craft world will be, extinct soon. So we try to, show to the people the crafts people is a good, uh, good value of working. So if the, children always, what you want to be in a future, they always told me like a football player, baseball player, like a doctor, but no one mentioned about the crafts people. So if the children wants to be the crafts people, that will be the great world. So, you know, for that, we try to show the, our craft philosophy to the world. If we show one person by one person, it is just introduced of the company or technique. But if we show together, that means, we it was going to be introduced of the craft culture or something to the world. That's why we get together. We try to show to the people in the world.
That's
And
very interesting because you're setting an example, right? A bit like with design. When I was a kid, if you mentioned design, it was graphic design mostly. But then I started to meet different people in different fields that they're all designers. So maybe I was not into graphic design per se, but I started to discover other fields, experience design. Of course, there's web design, there's spatial design, industrial design, all these different fields. And I feel that what you're doing is similar to this. You're elevating the role of the shokunin or of the craftsperson, and then one could decide where to apply that domain. In your case, your main business is tea caddies. In some of your colleagues is ceramics or woodwork, but you're all craftspeople. So I find that very valuable. Even though I must say that as a kid, you wanted to be a baseball player, right?
yes,
And now your hobby is racing. So
yeah,
you're an amateur, a professional amateur racer. Yeah,
they kind of amateur racer that.
yeah.
But and for the craft world, the when we start to go on, there is one meaning like something going on.
Hmm.
It is for the future, and also the go on has a meaning in Japanese, which is about thank you for our ancestors.
Hmm.
So we want to be the just the connection of the past and the future.
Right.
Mm, that
Right.
that's why. But it was like a goon, and also that's also a very interesting in Kyoto. When we started, we were just the Goonies. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it also brings the spirit of a group of a community moving out. We have quite a few questions, so if you don't mind, I'm going to take some of those. So Inma Martinez from she's in Malaga right now. She asks, how do you feel about some of your father's tacit knowledge disappearing with him when he
Mhm.
passes? Do you reckon this is also the beauty of shokunin, that from master to master, some skills will disappear and some skills will emerge unique to each?
tacit knowledge. I think most of the tacit knowledge from my father is already passing to me through 10 years of dedication of I always spend the time with him. And also and always in Japan, to be a master craftsman it takes about 10 years, but
Hmm.
only for the technique. Maybe we can learn it about 5 years, 8 years. But in the same time we have to feel about rashisa, which is kind of the atmosphere of the essence of the work. It takes about a couple of years more. So I think through the 10 years dedication, we start but learning through the tacit knowledge from my father too. But I think the tacit knowledge is the most important thing in the craft world, I think.
Hmm.
So we my father and I always focus the point. And also if I see other company, they always take care about tacit knowledge things to
Right.
pass to the next generation. So past 50 years ago, but also in a tea caddy company. There is a lot of tea caddy company in Kyoto, handmade tea caddy. But right now, only one company exists. That means there is,需要, demand. It's less demand. So what we can make it is very limited. So it's a little bit difficult to pass all the tacit knowledge to the next generation. So sometimes we work with university, and they put some sensor to the tools, and to measure all the feeling to the visibly, and then when we share the graph of my father cut it, and younger craftspeople try to make it same to cut a, but sometimes we try to not to show the graph to the younger people, and then try to say some words to the younger people. Then look at the graph. If the graph becomes the same, the word we use is the correct word to tell the tacit knowledge to the younger generation.
Right.
So that one, sometimes we try to make it visibly, to make it shorter. We have the less demand, which is we have the less opportunity to make the caddies. So
that's very interesting. Another question. This one is from Andy Budd in Brighton. Actually, he wants to know if you can buy the speakers.
Sorry, this is all sold out. We only make the 100 pieces last year, and we might be some speaker remain in Taiwan. There is our dealer there. Might be there's one or two.
So maybe, Andy, for the next collaboration they do, maybe just keep an eye on what they're doing. Maybe the following thing is going to be a tea caddy car, flying car, or something.
Maybe with Apple.
Yeah, maybe. But you wouldn't be allowed to say anything about that for at least the next 4 years. Alex Barrera from Madrid, he asks, what's your take on the current state of craftsmanship in Japan? I hear that most masters have more interest from foreigners than locals. Do you see that too?
What takes the current
state of craftsmanship in Japan? So do people in Japan care about craftsmanship and traditional objects, or is it more abroad these days?
I think the more abroad take care of the craftsmanship, because we lots of visitors from the foreign country. But not from the younger people from Japan. That's why I made a cafe in Kyoto. And if I tell about the traditional handicraft to the younger people, they always step away. So that's why, also when I make the speaker, I want to make the kind of the entrance for the crafts world from the other world. But in a foreign country, we have lots of company to research how you maintain the crafts right now.
Right. Yeah, I think I was at the Kaikado Café 2 years ago, and what is interesting is that it doesn't matter if you know anything about Kaikado the company, but there you see the products, you use some of the products from the other craftsmen we mentioned before from the collective. So you actually live them. And then it's, oh, wow, this is fantastic. I remember I was having my tea served in some of the Asahiyaki. They were using a small cup and a shiboridashi. And now I have one of those at home because I love the experience of it, right? So I find that very interesting as an entry point. Don't talk about the craft, make people experience it. And then maybe they'll be interested in it.
Oh, experience, one of the most important things to share.
Someone, Cindy from the Netherlands, she's asking, can you show a bit the tools and how you make the caddies? Can you make like a very short demonstration?
Yep. So, and using here, okay. I will adjust the diameter here. I'm hammering here. And if I hammer on this edge, it's more wider and it becomes narrow, and you can adjust the diameter on the top. And when we make it, also the sound is also important. If
So
I
you
can
can
hear,
tell when it's right by the sound.
yes. So even if my father sit away from me, he can tell my work is good or not.
Right.
And then you should, just one moment. Yes. Give me 5 seconds.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, yeah. 25問目。So then, I push it up the top of the lid, and then I put into the lower part, and then we will check. Now, this cannot go down, but if I adjust it a little bit, I think これで下がるのかな。
Magic.
Something like that. And sometimes I also use the hammer here, something like this one. This hammer,
That's an old one, right? That's consumed. That's why it's so small.
my grandfather's hammer. And I start learning from this hammer. And 5 years later, my father asked me to buy a new one. And this is the one I bought. And then I realized this, the size difference. This is my grandfather's 50 years. This becomes this size in 50 years.
Wow. Yeah, the famous 10,000 hours of practice. Mitsuyo Yamashita, actually, she's my ceramic sensei. She mentions that you have different words in Japan. You have bijutsu Kōgei and dento Kōgei to differentiate between the more craft side and the art side. Tim Leberecht from Berlin, I guess he's in Berlin. He asked, Yagi-san, are there things, objects, or businesses in this world that you deem just plain ugly? Is there anything they can do to become more beautiful with time?
I think, if there is, when I make the things, I always focus to one by one. I never focus to the 1 to hundreds. So if the people make the things one by one, I think that has kind of the beauty, and that kind of the beauty, people can feel it when they use it. Then I think that will make the difference. I think, to make more, to sell more, we have to think about 1 to hundreds, not one by one. I think that point makes the things a little bit not beautiful sometimes.
But could you bring, because some things it makes sense to mass produce them, right? It's either because we need them in big quantities or because the process requires some sort of industrial equipment. Can we also make those, and now we're talking about physical objects, can we make them also beautiful somehow? Even if we require some industrial or mass production.
And so even if in a mass production things, if we just think about money, that's, I think, never be a good thing. Even if in a mass production things, if people try to make it better or make it things, I think that can be a good quality things. And people always too much think about the business. I think business is important. Always my father tell me, we have to continue our company. So to continue our company, we have to make the sales. So I think that also important. But too much, business is, sometimes makes things not beautiful, I think.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have to know enough. There is a Japanese word.
Ware tada taru wo shiru.
Yes, that kind of things.
What
If
is enough?
we just only know the enough.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest diseases in the business world these days is that we're obsessed with scale and growth, but there's no stop. It's just for the sake of scale and growth. So there's no end to it. And the question is, what is enough? There's no problem with profit, but how much profit is enough? How much value do we want to create, and for whom? Um, I have a question here from Andrea Anastasia. She's also, I think, in the Netherlands. How would you encourage a young person taking up craft or a discipline today? Since mastery is something that takes a long time to achieve, what advice would you give them to keep going when things get hard?
If we can show in the future good images, so maybe younger generation can continue when it is hard. But when you think about when you are young, and if you want to be the baseball player, you practice very hard. And you want to be the football player, you will practice very hard. But you have the images. I want to be like this person. I want to be like that player. So if we can show the craft is a good world, like something like a good so right now I think lots of people in the world from the crafts world, they only can make the things with kind of the pocket money price. But I think that point we have the problem. Money is not everything, but also help the people to live more better life. So if other if we can show the craft's core value, maybe people pay more for the same things. So then younger people, I think, can be the practice harder. And also, if we can let them do what they want, they can do more harder. So in Kaikado, for younger craftsperson, I always let them do what they want. Sometimes. So yes, not every day. Every day, this is not Kaikado. So I never say no to the younger people if they want to make something new. Oh, let's try. And then the customer will choose. This is not good. This is good, or this is not good. So then, if younger people can make the try out to the next generation, I think that help them to continue to hard work.
I think also what you're doing with the go on of creating the idea of the craftsperson and people seeing that, it's also valuable. The same way that designers, if you go 30 or 40 years ago, designers as a thing didn't exist. It was very, very limited. And now people aspire to be designers or YouTubers or whatever it is, right? But there has to be a model to also act as a point of reference.
Once a year, we do the exhibition in a cafe for the younger people. They show, they always make what they want.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have time for maybe 2 more quick questions?
Sure.
So this is a very quick one. Someone asks, anonymous, he's curious. They are curious how long it takes to produce a standard tea caddy.
We always make about 40 caddy in a day with 20 people working together.
Okay, so that's about 2 caddies per person, even if it's a collaborative thing. Okay.
Yes, something like that.
Great. Here we have one question from Kitty Leering. Yagi-san, do you think that the aim to achieve a meticulous material and skill control such as you have is something that is culturally supported? The patience, the eye for detail, and the commitment to spend or all the years of your life to get perfection do not seem to be Western characteristics as much as Asian or Japanese.
You know, actually, we have a cousin in USA, and also my father really loved the culture from foreign country. And so when I was a children, my father almost never take me to the museum. So actually my experience about art, crafts, things is very limited. But when I started thinking about the detail or the quality of the things I make, I try to feel a lot of things through, not from the product, also from the services, from the racing technology, Formula One racing technology, and also from the architecture, from everything we can learn. Not from Japanese side. Not sometimes I learn lots of things from in a foreign country, and we can compare. Then we can see the difference, and that has some secrets over there. So, what I think what important things is look and learn, and look and feel it. I think that is more important things. So I don't think there is a Western or Japanese things connected in my career.
There's another question, the last one here for someone actually Flavien Delberg. He asks, Yagi-san, how do you see the challenge for Kaikado's next generation? You said that shoku-shōbai came from your father, but do you know where does he learn it from? Thanks, and well, he thanks us for the conversation.
Yeah, and I think he learned from my grandfather or great grandfather or great grandmother. Always, our ancestor told me, and actually my mother always told us, please keep your money. Always something happen, So I think that is one of the side of the business. And every day we always focus on what we are making. So to be a crafts person, everyday work, everyday things always teach me how to be a crafts person. But only we focus on making, I always forget about business side. So our ancestors always teach me and pointed us the business side more clearly. Then we can make the balance, I think.
And how do you think moving forward for the next generation? Is there something, well, first of all, do you think someone in your family would like to carry it on? Is there a plan B for, maybe having someone else carrying it on? What's the future so that Kaikado can have 145 years more into the future?
I think actually, there is the one 7-year-old boy as my son, and my son always play with my father in here. That helps to make the next generation. But even if I never, and also my father never forced him to pass, take over the Kaikado. If he wants to take over Kaikado, we are happy to pass to them. But if he doesn't want it, he doesn't care about it. And if someone really wants to take over Kaikado, maybe we might pass to the person, or we might close the Kaikado. But for the crafts person who working with me right now, they are always younger than myself. So I also try to make another company for the hand hammering, or it's connected to the iron or the copper or brass material, but not not only for the tea caddy. So if I can make another company, maybe I can sell this company to the younger craftsperson to, continue their career after I, passed away.
So even if Kaikado as a brand doesn't move onwards, there's going to be all the skills that will create other companies or be applied to other things. So in a way, the essence is not interrupted. It's just not making tea caddies anymore, but it's moving forward, which is quite interesting. There were a lot of other questions we unfortunately asked for a lot of your time already. I know that it's around 8 p.m. In Japan right now in Kyoto. Just a very quick one to close. Andy Budd was also asking, well, if you're part of a wider community, and you mentioned that with Go On, but what other craftspeople in Kyoto or Japan do you admire?
アドマイヤ
Yes.
ー。うん。
Who are your favorite craftspeople today that don't work for Kaikado?
And actually, I see a lot of crafts. I met a lot of crafts people in this year, and I see a lot of ceramic pottery, and lots of pottery in Japan, and I see the differences in different area, and also all the pottery connected to the culture in the area. That is very interesting. And also, actually, this is from London.
Oh yes. What's his name?
Steve Harrison.
Yes. Steve Harrison.
And also, this one connected to Japan as a technique things, but I can feel very different. So the technique is a simple technique to make the pottery, but has a lot of directions. So that is very interesting things, I think.
Taka, thank you very much for your time, for all these things. I'll be sharing the video earlier in the year. I'm definitely looking forward to going back to Japan and visiting you and spending some time there. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience. I see a lot of thank you messages in the chat. So this was great. Have a great Christmas and a great start of the new year.
Thank you very much. And as a last.
Oh, that's please. No, now you showed it. Tell us about that. That one is beautiful. That's urushi, right?
Yeah, this is urushi with a lacquer and kind of the transparent urushi. And also, this is the caddy for nuts.
Oh, for peanuts and stuff, right?
And you can keep the peanuts under here, and then you can put what you want to eat. So we try to make more interesting life in the future, even if we're not caddy.
Yeah.
So let's make more interesting things with your work for the future. Yes.
I'm sure that now Andy is going to ask if he can buy those, but I think he'll have to go to Kyoto.
Yes, or see you in somewhere in the world. Yes.
Yes. Cool. Well, Taka, thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
お疲れ様でした。
ありがとうございました。Thank you very much.
Thank you.